So let's start first by looking at spending and revenue. If we start to think about where does the government spend its money, most money spent by the government, and when I say the government here, I'm primarily talking at the federal level. Most of the money spent by the federal government is on what are called entitlements. Entitlements are things, the big three would be Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So Medicare is health care for the elderly, Medicaid is health care for the poor, Social Security covers both disability, covers widows and children of the deceased, and it also covers those who are retired. All of these together make up almost, if I'm not mistaken, about 50% of the entire federal government's budget. So it's quite a big chunk. And how much is the government spending? Well, in a year, it's approximately $4 trillion is the budget amount. So this is about $2 trillion or so. That's a pretty big chunk. And if we start to think about where everything is here, about half of it is this, and about half of it is this. So you can't really fix how the government spends money unless you deal with these three programs. Most of the time, we're not talking about these three things. And the reason why we don't talk about these three things most of the time is because if you start adjusting them, people get really grumpy really fast. And, the net result is that you don't get voted back into office. About 16% is the military. That's our next biggest thing. And I guess other thing of note would be we spend about 6% of our budget on interest on the debt. So meaning we spend 6% of that $4 trillion just keeping our creditors off our back and making sure that we're making the minimum payments. If you start to add this all up together, it's nearly 3/4 of the money. And to the extent that we don't talk about these things and we talk about everything else means that we're talking about a very small portion of the overall budget. Now, in terms of the revenue, the primary way that we get revenue is through taxes. So with that said, the biggest chunks here for the revenue, the big thing would be individual income taxes. That's about 47% of the money. Payroll taxes, which is typically what is called FICA. That's about 33% of the taxes. And then we've got corporate taxes. That's about 11%. So as you can see here, we're pretty darn close to everything. There's only about 9% remaining, and that's just miscellaneous other ways that the government brings in money. So tax reform would seem to be pretty important as we're talking about all these things. And to the extent that we don't talk about it, then again, we're not talking about how we bring all these things into balance, because together this brings about our federal budget, as the one side is spending, the other side being the revenue that's brought in through taxes.